For years, Oak Island has been a place wrapped in mystery. People have come here searching for gold, relics, and the truth behind legends older than any living memory. They dug through mud, wood, and stone. They built shafts, tunnels, and maps, each generation passing the mystery to the next. But for all the efforts, for all the drilling and digging, the island stayed quiet. No treasure chest, no golden crown, just silence. Until now. This time, the island whispered back. It began with something small. The soil, once thought ordinary, started to give clues. Scientists collected samples from the ongoing excavation sites. Under microscopes, the dirt revealed something strange. Tiny, almost invisible flecks of gold. Not coins, not chunks, but dust-like traces. They were so small that most would never have noticed them, but they were real. And that changed everything. For the first time, the idea of treasure wasn't just a dream, it was science. The soil itself was confessing. Every test, every sample showed the same pattern, faint but undeniable traces of gold. The question now wasn't if something valuable was buried below, but where it was hiding. The deeper the team looked, the clearer the signals became. Machines started detecting one particular spot over and over again. It was small, barely the size of a garden shed, but something powerful seemed to lie beneath. The team jokingly called it the baby blob. They laughed at the name, but everyone knew it could be something serious, because every test, every scan, and every clue led to that one place. As the digging continued, something unusual appeared, the remains of an old wooden staircase. It wasn't part of any modern structure. The wood was hand-cut, shaped by tools from centuries ago. The edges were worn smooth, and the cuts were not made by machines. Whoever built it had done so with skill and intention. The deeper they went, the more clear it became that this staircase had been hidden for a reason, as if someone had wanted it to be found, but only when the right time came. When the wood samples were placed inside the XRF machine for testing, the same result appeared again. Gold. Not a lot, but enough to prove the presence was not accidental. The gold content was higher than anything naturally occurring in that soil. This wasn't a random mineral trace. Someone had brought gold here. Excitement grew. Even if the team didn't find a treasure chest that day, the pattern was clear. Oak Island was finally giving real answers. Days passed, and the digging reached a new depth. Then, one morning, something unexpected happened. At about 90 feet deep, a loud sound echoed from below. The drill had hit something hollow. The sensors detected an empty space, a cavity where there should have been nothing. The drilling stopped. Everyone froze. The machines confirmed it. There was a tunnel or chamber buried deep under the ground. The team worked carefully, lowering rods and instruments to map the space. What they found changed everything. The hollow wasn't random. It was shaped, aligned, and built with purpose. This wasn't a natural cave. It was man-made. From that moment, it stopped being just a dig. It became a mission. The men who once joked about the baby blob now spoke quietly. Something big was down there. The ground of Oak Island was no longer just holding mysteries. It was beginning to tell its story. As the drilling expanded, 3 boreholes were dug side by side, each about the same distance apart. What shocked everyone was their alignment. When plotted on the map, all 3 holes formed a perfect straight line running east to west. That kind of precision doesn't happen by chance. It meant one thing. Someone had designed this long before machines existed. There was a plan. At the base of the holes, the team found wood again.
Strong, thick pieces, not crumbling or rotten. They looked like they had been carved or shaped by hand. Some speculated they might have been part of a pillar, a crate, or maybe even a support structure for something larger. Whatever it was, it had survived hundreds of years underground. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. More tests were run on the
Wood. The results were the same. Traces of gold. The air in the tent grew still. For decades, people had said Oak Island's treasure was just a myth. But these results proved that something made of gold had once been here. It wasn't rumor. It was fact. Everywhere they looked, in the soil, the wood, even the water, tiny traces of gold kept appearing. Rick Lagina stood over the monitor, his eyes locked on the readings. For years he had chased nothing but hopes. Now, for the first time, those hopes had turned into numbers on a screen. The readings were real, solid, and consistent. Every failure, every false dig suddenly meant something. The island wasn't hiding a secret anymore. It was guiding them toward it. They went back to the baby blob, determined to push further. The machine started drilling again, reaching deeper with each pass. At nearly 98.5 feet, they found another hollow space. When the core sample was pulled out, the same wood appeared again. Same texture, same color, same quiet mystery. Only this time, it wasn't just wood. It was a sign, a message from whoever had built this centuries ago. Terry, the geologist, leaned close to study the core. Charles stood beside him, eyes wide. There was no shouting, no loud excitement, just quiet understanding. Everyone knew they were holding a piece of history. The deeper they dug, the clearer the message became. This wasn't just dirt and timber. This was a coded design, a buried message from the past. When the wood samples were dried and tested again, Emma, the lead examiner, saw something on the data screen that made her stop. The readings were the same as before, faint but undeniable traces of gold. Not once, not twice, but in every piece taken from the same spot. It was now certain the gold wasn't scattered randomly. It was following a pattern, a map hidden in the earth itself. The next phase began with renewed energy. The drills roared to life once more. Down in the garden shaft, the metal trembled, the ground humming softly as the machine reached the lower levels. Brandon and Alex handled the equipment, adjusting the angles. This time, they weren't drilling straight down. They rotated the drills at different angles to study the tunnel walls, hoping to detect something hidden in the sides. If gold had seeped into the wood, the surrounding earth would hold its story too. At one point, the machine hit something soft. Then, silence. The sound changed again, signaling another air pocket. They measured the depth. 90 feet once more. Terry checked the readings. All the boreholes, perfectly aligned from east to west, showed the same thing. Hollow spaces, lined with wood, each built at the same depth. It was proof beyond doubt. This was no accident. Someone had built a structure down there, a structure meant to last. The phone rang. On the other end, confirmation came from the lab. The new samples also contained traces of gold. The team looked at one another. There were no more questions. The mystery had become fact. The land itself seemed to be speaking now, revealing secrets buried for hundreds of years. Even Marty, known for his cautious logic, was silent. He looked at the maps spread across the table, tracing the lines with his finger. Every new borehole, every chamber, every tunnel, all of them connected. The hunt was no longer blind. It had direction, structure, and meaning.
Every drill was now part of a strategy. The search for treasure had become something greater, the decoding of a forgotten design. The Oak Island mystery was no longer just about finding gold. It had become a quest to uncover the truth behind centuries of secrets. The deeper the team went, the more evidence they found that human hands had shaped the land long ago. Hands belonging to people who wanted to protect something important, something sacred, or something powerful enough to be hidden forever. When the team examined the layers of blue clay again, it became clear that it wasn't placed there by accident. Blue clay was known to be waterproof, and in ancient times it was often used to seal vaults or chambers to keep them safe from flooding. If someone had used blue clay here, it meant they knew the land, the tides, and the dangers. It meant they planned every detail of the structure. Rick, Marty, and Dr. Spooner began to wonder if what they were uncovering wasn't just a pit, but a highly engineered vault system. And this theory made sense when compared with the tunnels found at different depths. Each one seemed to connect or align with another. They weren't random holes in the ground. They were a map, a coded design created with precision centuries ago. The more the team compared their findings, the more they realized the tunnels could form a network. One tunnel connected the swamp area, another led toward the money pit, and another seemed to travel in a completely different direction, toward Lot 26, the site of the mysterious stone wall. That wall itself told a story. Its stones weren't ordinary. They were carved and stacked carefully, showing signs of age, but also of skill. The style was unmistakably European, similar to castle foundations seen in medieval England and Scotland, and the same construction technique was also found in Portugal, where Templar history ran deep. This wasn't just a coincidence anymore. Could it be that the Knights Templar, famous for their hidden treasures and secret missions, had made their way to Oak Island centuries ago? The pieces started to connect when the team realized that the old well found on Lot 26 was designed exactly like those ancient wells from the 11th century. Experts confirmed that its shape, layers, and construction style were too advanced for colonial builders in the 1700s. Someone much older and much more secretive had been there long before the settlers. Fred Nolan, years before his death, had mentioned this theory too. He had found ship parts buried in the marsh, as if an old vessel had been taken apart and hidden. He had also found a cross carved into stone, something that matched Templar symbolism. And now, his son, Tom Nolan, had rediscovered one of Fred's old notebooks. Inside were detailed sketches of a buried well, one that had been sealed with layers of stone and clay, as if someone wanted to hide it from the world. When Tom showed the sketches to the Laginas, their suspicions grew stronger. There wasn't just one mystery on Oak Island. There were several, and all of them seemed to lead back to one incredible possibility, that the island was a secret vault for something ancient and sacred. Meanwhile, back at the lab, Emma Culligan continued her testing. The samples of wood taken from the garden shaft kept showing the same thing, traces of gold. Not flakes, not nuggets, but tiny microscopic layers that had soaked into the wood itself. That meant the gold wasn't just sitting there naturally. It had been near something metallic or gilded, something man-made.
And the deeper the team went, the stronger these signals became. The readings were small, but consistent, enough to make even the most skeptical scientists stop and think. Craig Tester, known for his logical mind, began comparing the gold data with the magnetic field readings from the ground. When he overlaid both sets of information on the digital map, something shocking appeared. The strongest gold readings lined up perfectly with the magnetic anomalies, areas that seemed to hide metal structures underground. And all of them formed a pattern, an east-to-west alignment that repeated across the island. This couldn't be nature. This was design, Each borehole confirmed it. Each time they drilled, they found the same depth, the same hollows, and the same faint traces of gold. It was as if someone had created a series of tunnels to lead future seekers in a certain direction. It wasn't just a treasure hunt, it was a message. Someone wanted whoever found it to follow the signs. But why? As Rick stood near the drilling rig one evening, the air thick with mist and tension, he couldn't help but think about all the years of digging, all the failures, all the near misses. And yet now, the island was finally talking back. For more than 200 years, Oak Island had swallowed dreams, lives, and fortunes. But now, it was slowly revealing its truth. Maybe the real treasure was never meant to be found easily. Maybe it was a test, one of faith, patience, and knowledge. That night, the team gathered in their tent to review the day's findings. Soil, wood, dust, all neatly placed on the tables, each sample a piece of the puzzle. Emma's laptop glowed softly in the dim light as she ran the scans again. When the readings appeared, everyone froze. The numbers were the same, almost identical to the ones before. Gold traces in the wood, faint but undeniable. Emma whispered, "It's not just here, it's everywhere." And then, just as they began to process the data, another alert came from the field. Gary Drayton, the metal detecting expert, had found something. It was a handmade rosehead nail, old, rusty, but beautifully crafted. The type of nail that dated back to the 1700s. But here's where it got strange. A nearly identical nail had been found before, on the opposite end of the island. The odds of that were almost impossible. The two nails, the hooks, and the iron tools all seemed to belong to the same structure, maybe even the same builders. When Gary found an iron hook nearby, things got even more interesting. The hook was similar to one used centuries ago to pull up buckets from wells or to lift something much heavier. Could it have been part of a pulley system? If so, it meant that whatever lay below wasn't just buried, it was meant to be retrieved by those who knew the secret mechanism. The deeper they went into the ground, the more pieces came together. The wood, the clay, the gold traces, the iron tools, they weren't random finds. They were evidence of engineering. Someone had designed Oak Island like a vault, with multiple layers of traps and clues. The more you dug, the more you realized you were being led, carefully, deliberately, by those who built it. Then came another twist. When soil from the new site was examined, traces of silver appeared. This wasn't just a one-time find. Silver had been detected in different locations around the island before, and now, for the first time, it was being found near the same gold-bearing zones. That could only mean one thing. Something made of both metals, possibly an artifact, was buried deep below. Rick and Marty could barely contain their excitement. For years, skeptics had laughed, calling Oak Island a myth, a money pit with no real treasure. But now, science was proving otherwise. The metals, the wood, the tunnels, everything pointed to a truth hidden for centuries. It was no longer about chasing legends, it was about uncovering history. As night fell over the island, the team's floodlights illuminated the muddy ground. The drilling rigs stood tall, like sentinels guarding a secret. The sound of machinery echoed through the mist. The men worked quietly, each one knowing that every inch they drilled brought them closer to something extraordinary. And then, at 90 feet deep, the drill struck another hollow space. The sound was clear, a break, an echo of air beneath the earth. Everyone stopped,